You ever walk into your own workshop after a 12-hour night shift hoping to just kick off your boots and maybe, I don't know, breathe for a second only to find your least favorite neighbor's car parked dead center in the middle of your workspace? Yeah, that's how my day started. Picture this, her car, hot pink, gleaming like a threat, sitting right where my welder's supposed to be. For a moment, I actually thought I'd fallen asleep behind the wheel and was hallucinating. But nope. There she was, standing with her phone held high like some low-budget cop show announcing to the world, or just her Facebook group probably, that she was on official inspection business. I said, "What are you doing?" Not yelling, just tired, just confused. Karen didn't even bother looking embarrassed. She lifted her phone up a little higher like she wanted to get my reaction on video. "Official inspection," she says. "Do not interfere. My lock is cut." She sounded so damn pleased too, like this was her big moment. I just stared at her, at my tools shoved against the wall, at the oil pooling under her tires, at the way she'd made herself comfortable in a place she had no right to be. "You don't have authority here," I told her. She grinned, tapped a piece of paper stuck to her windshield. "I do today." The arrogance in her voice. Man, if arrogance was currency, she could have bought my whole shop. You ever want to just scream but you're too tired for it? That was me. Instead, I flipped on the welder. Karen laughed. "What are you going to do?" she said. So I did the only thing that made sense. I welded the doors shut. Not her inside, just her car. Trapped. Her eyes went wide just for a second, and that's when I knew I wasn't going to lose. And in that moment, while she tried to figure out how the hell she was going to explain this to the HOA, I started planning a little vacation. For me. For her. For the whole damn neighborhood. Let me back up. If you've never met a real-life Karen, count yourself lucky. The first time we met, she didn't walk over to say hi or drop off cookies or any of that. Nope. She introduced herself like she was serving a warrant. HOA president, she said, stepping right past my gate before I could even get my gloves off. "We need to talk about this operation. You ever have someone stand on your property and make it sound like you're the one trespassing?" That's how it felt. I said, "You're standing on private property." She just smiled, real calm. HOA jurisdiction doesn't stop at your feelings. That was her. Every word like it had been rehearsed in front of a mirror. Every pause like she'd written it down on a notepad the night before. She walked my driveway the way you'd tour a condemned building, like she was already picturing how to bulldoze it. "You can't run an industrial business here," she told me. I held up my permits, clean and legit. "I have all my paperwork," I said. She waved her clipboard at me like she was swatting a fly. "Permits can be challenged." That's how it started. After that, she started showing up whenever she wanted. Noise complaint, safety concern, visual violation. Every time I showed her paperwork, she just came back louder. One day she leaned in and whispered, "People like you always cave eventually. You know that feeling when you realize someone isn't threatening you, they're just telling you how the world works for them." Yeah. I asked if that was a threat. She laughed. "It's experience," she said. "The thing about people like Karen, compliance isn't what they're after. It's control." She wanted my shop gone. Not because it was dangerous, not because it was ugly, but because it didn't fit her vision of the perfect neighborhood. And because I found out later the HOA had been eyeing my little slice of land for something a whole lot bigger. So when she finally broke in, cut the lock, rolled her Maybach right into my shop, and started filming like she'd won the lottery, it wasn't impulsive. It was her endgame. She honestly believed I'd panic. Maybe call the cops, maybe beg the HOA for mercy. She never imagined I'd do something else entirely. Thing is, the friction started small. You know, those tiny things that build up until they're too big to ignore. 2 days after I moved in, I caught Karen in my driveway. Arms crossed, eyes narrowed, tracking every bit of welding equipment as it came off my rental truck. "You can't operate that here," she barked, "not even a hello." "I've got the permits," I said, wiping sweat off my brow. She tilted her head, a smirk in her eyes. "Permits don't matter if the HOA decides something's unsafe." 48 hours after that, she filed her first noise complaint. Never mind, my shop was soundproofed and I was working inside permitted hours. Next thing I know, I'm stepping outside with welding gloves still on, and there she is with her phone out. "I can hear metallic vibrations during my yoga session," she declared. "You're 50 yards away," I told her. "And these walls are insulated." She just smiled like she knew something I didn't. That's when the letters started. Professionally printed HOA violations, all of them total nonsense. Industrial activity, fire risk, visual disruption, pick your flavor. Each time city inspectors showed up, looked around my spotless, code-compliant shop, and left shaking their heads. "She reported you again?" one asked. 3 times this week I sighed, and every time I passed an inspection, she got angrier. By month 3, she'd moved from paperwork to a full online smear campaign. Posts accusing me of using unsafe chemicals, running secret operations, threatening the peace of the neighborhood. Neighbors who'd never spoken to me started treating me like I was radioactive, all thanks to her slow drip of nonsense. And then she started wandering into my backyard, peering through windows, snapping photos of equipment through cracks in the siding like she was building a case. Nothing huge yet. Just constant low-grade pressure, like a test to see how far she could go before I'd snap. When she started using the HOA board as her own private army, that's when I knew things were getting serious. One morning I found another letter stapled to my workshop door. Official inspection scheduled. Failure to comply may result in fines and legal action. I stepped outside, toolbox in hand. "You can't authorize an inspection inside my shop," I told her. "Clipboard up. We're just making sure everything is safe. Nothing personal." Her phone was already recording, catching my face, my workspace, everything. Safe for whom I asked. For the community, she said, like that settled it. That week she came back twice more, once alone, then with 2 board members. Walked right in, measuring distances between machines, snapping photos of every scrap of metal. Just checking compliance, she insisted, eyes watching my reaction. "You have no jurisdiction inside a private permitted workshop," I told her. Her tone didn't change. "The board believes we do." So I took my own photos. Time-stamped, GPS tagged, everything. By the end of the week, she'd filed multiple complaints with the city, all stuff inspectors had already dismissed. Noise, visual disruption, industrial activity. All officially refuted, all filed again. That's when I realized she wasn't responding to reality. She was trying to create it. All those official-sounding letters, all that board backing, it was just noise. Designed to make me question my own rights in my own space. Every conversation, every visit was meant to wear me down. To make me think maybe she was right and I was just a guest on my own land. Before long, what started as an annoying neighbor had turned into full-scale harassment, with the HOA now in on it. And I guess for Karen, the next logical step was actual trespass, criminal stuff. The morning I came home from that night shift and found my shop broken into, my lock cut in half, and her car parked where my workbench should be, I knew the game had changed. You ever feel your stomach drop through the floor? That was me seeing that pink Maybach parked inside. Tools shoved aside, oil stains on the epoxy I'd spent weekends getting just right, aluminum sheets bent out of shape, steel stock all over the place. Karen was outside, phone up, filming. Official inspection in progress. Do not interfere. I walked up, not trusting myself to speak. "You know this is private property, right?" She shrugged. "I've established precedent. This is part of my inspection." She'd set up shop in my shop, coffee cup on the console, reading glasses on the dash, manila folders scattered everywhere. She'd been there for hours. That's when it hit me. None of this was impulsive. Every tool she'd touched, every mess she'd made was part of a plan. She wanted me to blow up, call the cops, make a scene, anything to look unstable. I took out my phone and quietly activated the hidden cameras I'd installed months ago after her first few surprise inspections. Every move she made, time-stamped and GPS tagged. "Everything's being recorded, of course," she said, noticing the cameras. I just nodded, already thinking about next steps. This wasn't about noise complaints anymore. This was criminal trespass. And Karen. She had no idea what was coming. By mid-morning, the circus had gotten bigger. I called my attorney, Dave, a guy who's seen more of these HOA battles than he'd ever care to admit. While I scrubbed through camera footage for the 3rd time, Dave took one look at the damage and said, "She's committed multiple felonies. Breaking and entering, criminal trespass, property damage. Any prosecutor would love this." Right then, county code enforcement and a surveyor showed up, clipboards in hand. "Are you Mr. Johnson?" they asked. "Yes," I said. They walked through my shop, noting every tool out of place, every stain, every piece of evidence Karen had left behind. "Multiple violations reported," the surveyor said, scanning the mess. "We're confirming if they're legitimate." I just let them look, didn't say a word. Karen hovered in the doorway, voice strained but still trying to sound calm. "I'm documenting compliance," she insisted. The county clerk flipped through her paperwork and shook his head. "These filings are invalid. Your claims have no legal basis." Her smile faltered. That was the first time I saw any doubt in her. Dave's advice was simple. Document everything. Photos, timestamps, everything. You're not just protecting your property. You're building a legal case. So that's what I did. I pointed out every hazard she'd created, every violation, every time the Maybach was parked where it had no right to be. By the time the system finished checking, Karen's authority had already started to crumble. The thing is, people like Karen, they get by on intimidation, on the idea that most folks won't push back, won't call the law, won't hold up a mirror. But once someone does, their whole act starts to fall apart. By the next morning, Karen was desperate. I watched from my kitchen window as she circled her car phone glued to her ear, shouting, "I need immediate access. This is unlawful." Neighbors stopped on the sidewalk filming her meltdown. She didn't even notice they'd all become witnesses. I stayed calm, talking quietly with Dave through my headset. "She's calling the board, trying to get support. Just document everything," he reminded me. Then out of nowhere, a twist one of her own people, Laura Smith, walked up and handed me a stack of notes. Detailed records of every false complaint, every fake observation Karen had ever orchestrated. I guess even her allies had had enough. Karen kept screaming, "You can't keep me out, this is trespass." I just kept breathing, documenting, showing every emergency exit, every fire code compliance. "You're welcome to leave through the rear door," I told her. "But the main entrance is sealed until a contractor restores it or I get back from Hawaii." She pounded her fists on the steel plates. "This is illegal imprisonment." Neighbors shook their heads, still filming. Within hours, the evidence had made its way to the HOA county officials, even the police. Calls poured in. Karen had no allies left. Her authority gone. Her immunity shredded. And for the first time, Karen realized she was facing real consequences, ones she couldn't spin, manipulate, or evade. Then came the showdown. The emergency HOA meeting room was buzzing before I even stepped inside. Karen was there at the head of the table, clipboard ready, still trying to look like she was in charge. "This is a blatant violation of HOA rules," she announced. I walked in calm, carrying a folder stuffed with evidence, security footage, timestamps, GPS, tagged photos, copies of every bogus complaint. "Actually," I said, "you've committed multiple crimes: breaking and entering, criminal trespass, property damage, and that's just what I can prove so far." Her smile died. The room got real quiet. Some board members started shifting in their seats. Neighbors in the back lifted their phones, recording. Karen tried to fight back, but her voice was shaky now. "I was conducting an inspection. You're exaggerating. This is about safety." The sheriff stepped in behind me, looking over my evidence. "Miss Whitmore, this is criminal behavior. You have no authority to enter or occupy private property. That's trespassing and property damage." For the first time, the board leaned in to actually read the evidence. Karen tried to argue, but the proof was right there. She froze. I started playing the security footage, her Maybach, my shop, the cut lock, the mess. The gasps in the room were real. Next, I laid out the forged HOA filings, the notes Laura had given me, everything. "She filed complaints she knew were false," I said. "This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate attempt to intimidate and occupy private property." Karen's face went red, her voice started to break. I was just... But I didn't let her finish. "We have calls, timestamps, witnesses. It's all here." By the end, the room was dead silent. Karen's narrative was gone. Her power gone. She tried blaming her friends, tried to twist the law, tried to bluff her way out. The sheriff cut her off. "Miss Whitmore, you're facing criminal trespass, breaking and entering, and property damage charges. Your HOA position does not exempt you from the law." Karen's face went gray. She started calling attorneys, but even they told her to stand down. As the meeting broke up, her co-conspirators slunk away. Neighbors exchanged relieved glances. Patricia Williams, who'd recorded the first incident, whispered, "We never thought it would end like this." I walked back through my shop that night, every tool in its place, every surface clean. The smell of steel and oil, it finally felt right again. "You handled it perfectly," one neighbor told me. "No drama, just facts." The HOA issued formal apologies. Laura Smith and Robert Williamson both resigned. Neighbors who'd been silent started sharing their own stories of harassment. It was cathartic. We learned documents stand firm, and the truth can actually win. Karen didn't get away with it. By the end of the week, she was facing real charges: breaking and entering, trespass, property damage, conspiracy to file false reports. The court ordered her to pay over 14 grand in damages. She got federal mail fraud charges too for all those bogus filings, fines, a permanent record. Her helpers got off easier, they cooperated, resigned, did community service. Karen, 18 months probation, 400 hours community service, every penny in restitution. Her real estate license, gone. Fired from her job. She'd never work in property management again. Civil court hit her with another 3 grand for emotional distress and lost equipment. Turns out if you harass people systematically, the law will hit back just as systematically. With her gone, the neighborhood actually changed. Workshop doors unlocked. The Maybach returned, but only after every bit of damage was documented. The HOA rewrote the rules. Now every inspection needs unanimous approval, legal review, open meetings. The secrecy that protected her is dead. People talk now, share stories, stand up for each other. And that legal defense fund I'd started, we used it for security cameras and neighborhood education, so nobody ever has to go through this again. You know what stayed with me after all that? How fragile assumed authority really is. Karen thought she was untouchable. But the law, patience, and a mountain of evidence, those are things you can't bully or charm your way around. Sometimes the only way to solve a problem built on intimidation is with precision and a little bit of stubbornness. I spent 8 months looking over my shoulder. Now I weld in peace. Alone with my shop restored, justice done. Boundaries, real ones, not just lines on a map, were finally respected. And you know what? It felt good. Quiet, right? Now let me ask you, where's the line, really? When does someone's authority become abuse? And when does standing your ground turn into something more? Would you have handled it the same way? Or would you have given up just to keep the peace? I'd love to hear what you think. Or if you've ever tangled with power like that, what you did. Let's be honest. These stories never really end. But this one at least ended the right way.